Hello guys, greetings once again. I'd like to say welcome to our class, our YouTube class. For today, we'll be talking about Equisetum. Equisetum, of course, is a representative class for uh, the the class Equisetinae, or the Sphenopsida. Remember, we'll be talking about Pteridophyta. We said that Pteridophyta has four different classes: the Salophytinae or the Salotopsida, the Lycopsida, the Sphenopsida or the Equisetinae, then the Pteropsida. So, in today's class, we just want to look at the representative of the class Equisetinae or the Sphenopsida. And these are the few characteristics of Equisetum. And like we did in the case of Silotum and Lycopodium, I'd like us to go through the characteristics, after which we'll now look at the general life cycle of these two representative examples. The first one is that Equisetum is commonly called the club moss. Sorry, the horsetail. The club moss is the common name for Lycopodium. Equisetum is commonly called the horsetail. The horsetail. Please note that that is a common name. And the reason it's called the horsetail is because of the nature of the plant. Let me show you from the text. So because of the nature of the plant, that is why it is called the horsetail. The horsetail. The horsetail. So you could see this. Look at this. This is the plant. This is the plant, Equisetum. So it has a tail. It has a shape or a structure that looks like the tail of a horse. That is why it is commonly called the horsetail. Then it does not exceed 1 meter in height. The height of this plant does not is within the range of 1 meter. Then of course we have presence of strobili, the rhizome, and the adventitious root. These characteristics, if you can remember, I mentioned the presence of a strobilus. Strobili is a plural of strobilus, and don't also forget that it is also called the sporangiferous spike. So this is a reproductive branch that bears the reproductive leaf, which is called the sporophyll. I took time to explain this in the case of Lycopodium. So in this case now, Equisetum also has the sporangiferous spike or the strobilus that carries the sporophyll, which is a reproductive leaf. And don't also forget that the sporangium, which is the main structure, the main sac-like structure that houses the spores, are found within the sporophyll. And of course, they also have rhizome. And within this rhizome, the adventitious roots arise within or from the rhizome. The adventitious roots arise from the rhizome. If you can remember, we said that Silotum does not have roots, does not have adventitious roots. It lacks roots completely, entirely. But we talked about the presence of roots, adventitious roots in Lycopodium. So it's similar to what we have in Equisetum. Just like Lycopodium, it has adventitious roots and we also know that the adventitious roots arise from the rhizome. Then Prothallus is monoecious and dioecious. Now, this statement is not too direct, but I will explain it. When you say that, if you can remember, the Prothallus of Silotum, we mentioned that it's monoecious. And what does it mean to be monoecious? It means that the two sexual organs are found on the same Prothallus. That makes it monoecious. But in the case of Equisetum now, we are now saying that it can be monoecious and can also be dioecious. Now, when the Prothallus grows in under a favorable condition and not in a crowded environment, or yes, not in a crowded environment, and when I say crowded, that is the presence of other prothalli, then it's monoecious. That means when the environment is favorable, when the environment is favorable, and Prothallus is growing in such environment is said to be monoecious. But when the Prothallus is growing in a crowded area, probably with the presence of other Prothalli, that means they become crowded, then it changes to become dioecious. And when it becomes dioecious, that means that the sexual organs are no longer attached on one single Prothallus. That means we have a Prothallus that has the male sex organ, which is called the anteridium, and the one that has the female sex organ, which is called the archegonium. So that is the meaning of the Prothallus being monoecious and dioecious. And in the kinds, I mean, in the area of distribution, it is known that it is distributed in cold and temperate region of the world. That is the location or the main place where you can likely see this group of plants that is called the Equisetum. Remember I said we are still going back to look at the life cycle of Equisetum differently, and we also look at the life cycle of Dryopteris. Then in terms of when it comes to Dryopteris, remember Dryopteris belongs to the class Pteridophyta. You can go to my previous class to see how we classified Pteridophyta. We said that Pteridophyta can be divided into two different subclasses: the Eusporangiate, which is a primitive, and the Leptosporangiate, which is advanced. We also talked about the different orders of the Eusporangiate, such as Oglophosaurus, the Osmondeus, the Marasheus. Then for leptosporangiate, we talked about the Filiceus, we talked about the Salvines and the Marzilius. So that under Filiceus, that is where you see the Dryopteris. I will have other examples that are found under that same Filiceus, like the Pteris and the rest of them. So Dryopteris was picked as the representative example of members of Pteridophyta as a class, or let's say members of Leptosporangiate as the subclass, or members of Filiceus as the order. Don't forget this. We did this in our previous class. A minute. Okay. So I've mentioned. Okay, we are talking about. Okay, that reminds me. The Equisetum has a class, a family called Equisetaceae. Equisetaceae. Please don't forget that. It has a family that is called Equisetaceae. All right, coming back to Dryopteris. The first characteristic of members of Dryopteris is the fact that they have heart-shaped Prothallus. They have heart-shaped Prothallus. Okay, let me quickly point out. I'll still go back to Equisetum. We'll still going back and front. This is the Prothallus of the Equisetum. We're going back to Equisetum now. Since I mentioned since I'm mentioning the shape of Prothallus, let me also use some opportunity to talk about the Prothallus of Equisetum. So this is the structure of the Prothallus of Equisetum. You can see how it looks like. Then it contains a archegonium, which is a female sex organ, and the anteridium, which is the male sex organ. If you notice, the anteridium is usually found on top, whereas the archegonium is usually found beneath, so that with the help of water and dew, the anterozoids can easily get to the archegonium where it fertilizes the egg. So these are the rhizoids, the rhizoids or the rhizoids that function as roots, in this case to enable the Prothallus to get nutrients from the soil. Okay, so having shown you that, let's go back to Dryopteris again. Like I said, we'll be going back and front. This is the shape of the Prothallus of Dryopteris, and that is why it is said to have a heart-shaped Prothallus. So you can see that this looks like the heart. You can also see the rhizoids and the sex organs, the rhizoids that help to sorry that help to they help the Prothallus to get nutrients from the soil. All right, so we are going forward. Another characteristics of the and of course the Prothallus of Dryopteris is monoecious, as you can see that both sex organs are found on the same Prothallus. That is a characteristic that is said to be monoecious. Okay, so the moist is a moisture loving plant, so it grows in shady and moist area. So that is where you basically see the Dryopteris, since it's a moisture loving plant. So you see it, along the marshy areas or moist environment. That is where you see members of this group or this group called the Dryopteris. Then, of course, it also have leaflets that are borne on the rachis and deeply lobed. Each lobe is called pinule. So uh, it has leaflets. It has leaflets that is pinnatory compound. It has leaflets. This is the rachis. This is the rachis. Then it has leaflets. So this is said to be pinnate. Pinnate. When the leaflets are at opposite direction, facing each other at opposite direction, that is when we say it is a when we say that it is pinnate. Then I also say that it is born on rachis. This central mid-leaf or branch is said to be rachis. The leaflets are born on rachis, and you can see that it has some cuts or depression. It has some cuts or depression. That is what we call what. That's why it is said to be deeply lobed, and each of these lobe is now called said to be pinule. It's now called pinule. Let me show you from the textbook. So you can see the leaf, and the leaf is also called frond. The leaf of Dryopteris is called frond. Frond. The leaves are said to be fronds, are called fronds. So you can see the leaf, how it appears, the frond, how it appears, is deeply lobed, and it occurs at the opposite sides, and that is why it's said to be pinnate. And of course, the rachis is the central midrib that the leaflets are attached to. That the leaflets are attached to. That is called the rachis. The rachis. And sometimes you discover that the fronds are coiled inwards. That the fronds are coiled inwards. You can see this frond coiling inwards. And once you see a frond coiled inwards, that frond is said to be siscinate. Siscinate. When you see it coiling inwards, it's said to be siscinate. Then another important thing which you should know is that the both stem and petiole are covered by brownish scales called ramenta. There is what we call ramenta, and that ramenta is a brownish scale that covers both the stem and the petiole. Both the stem and the petiole. Both the stem and the petiole. Okay, so we also look at the sporangium of Dryopteris. You see, Strobylus or sporangiferous spike is found only. Please note this: is found only in Lycopodium and Equisetum. You don't see Strobylus or sporangiferous spike in Xylotum. You also cannot see it in Dryopteris. So in the case of Dryopteris, The sporophyll contains what is called sorus. The sporophyll contains what is called sorus. Sorus is singular, sora is plural. So this sorus is what houses the sporangium. So the sorus are born on the sporophyll, and the sporangium is inside the sporus, or is housed inside the sporus. So within the sporus now, uh, sorus, not sporus, sorry, sorus. I say sporangium are found inside the sorus, and the sorus are born on the sporophyll. So they don't have strobilus or the sporangiferous spike. Please, this is important you note it, that Dryopteris or members of Dryopteris do not have strobilus or sporangiferous spike. Now, it is also important you note that the sporangium is also being covered by a, a shield that is called the indusium. Indusium. Indusium is what covers the sporangium. That means the sporangium is well covered by what is called the indusium. And apart from the indusium covering the sporangium itself, I mean the sporangium of Dryopteris is complex. It has some structures that are not found in the sporangium of other plants. Don't forget that as plants advance, they come up or they get other sophisticated structures that are not found in the primitive ones. So you don't see this kind of thing in the synangium or xylotum. Don't forget, in the case of xylotum, it is called synangium since it's a triocular sporangium. So you don't see this in the sporangium of a Lycopodium. You also cannot see it in the sporangium of Equisetum, but we are now seeing it in that of a Dryopteris, because Dryopteris is the most advanced group of all the members of Pteridophyta. So I was trying to explain something, that the sporangium of Dryopteris is also made up of two different parts: the capsule and the stalk. The capsule and the stalk. The sporangium is also made up of the capsule and stalk. So the capsule itself has two different walls. We have the thin wall and thick wall. Thick wall called the annulus, and thin wall called the stomium. The thick wall called annulus, and thin wall called the stomium. So these are the two different walls you see within the sporangium. And of course, when the sporangium is ripe and mature, it dehisces. It dehisces from the thin part, which is the stomium. Then the annulus draws back, which now helps in releasing the spores into the external environment. So look at what I've been explaining. This is a structure. I don't know if you can see this. So this is a structure. This is the annulus, the thick wall. Then this is the stomium, the thin part, and that is where it first of all dehisces. Then the annulus draws back before the spores are released into the external environment. Then this is the stalk of the sporangium. So that is it about sporangium. Then Dryopteris is also homosporous. Dryopteris is homosporous because they produce one type of spore. Remember, we said that xylotum is homosporous. We said that Lycopodium is homosporous. Then we said that Equisetum is homosporous. Dryopteris is also homosporous. But don't forget that we also have Examples of members of Pteridophyta that have advanced to become heterosporous. Heterosporous meaning that they have two different kinds of spores. One is a microspore and the other one is a megaspore. All right. The next thing to talk about is the life cycles of these plants. The life cycles of these plants, excuse me, we want to look at the life cycles of these plants. Let's look at that of Equisetum first before we now go into Dryopteris. So this is the plant, this is the strobulus, which is the reproductive branch or the sporangiferous spike. Of course, it has the reproductive leaf called the sporophyll. Then the sporangium are born on the sporophyll. Then, of course, it has the spore cell that produces the spores. The spore germinates in a fertile ground. Germinates when it falls on a fertile ground and possibly bring about the prothallus. And the prothallus has the male and the female sexual organs. The anterodum, which is the male, the archegonum, which is the female. Then this produces the egg. Remember that the archegonium has neck and venter, and that the egg is located within the venter. So these two mates, the pterozoite and the egg, don't forget this is also called a sperm. Then they form zygote, which is also called the oospore, the oospore. Then this develops into an embryo, and this embryo develops into the plant. So this is the life cycle. Now all the stages from the spore, all the stages from the spore to the gametes are called the gametophyte. The gametophyte, it has n number of chromosomes. Then all the stages from the zygote or oospore down to the spore cell are called the sporophyte. The sporophyte having 2n number of chromosomes. So this is the life cycle of Equisetum. So let's put it like this: Equisetum plant, Equisetum plant, Equisetum plant. So this is the life cycle. How many minutes? Okay. All right. So we'll go into the life cycle of the second group. The second group the second group, which is the Dryopteris. Like I explained before, note that in the life cycle of Dryopteris, the plant produces the sporophyll, and there's no strobilus in the case of Dryopteris. And because there's no strobilus, you won't mention strobilus because it's not there. You see strobilus in Lycopodium, you see it in Equisetum, then you can also see it in gymnosperm. And there's something I forgot to say, that's important. There's something I forgot to say in the case of Equisetum. Equisetum has branch and unbranched shoots. The branch shoot is usually a vegetative in function. It helps in the attraction of sunlight for photosynthesis and also for the growth of the plant. And it's long-lived. That means it lasts for a long time. But the unbranched shoot usually has strobilus at the apex, and just it looks like the cone of gymnosperm. That unbranched shoot is sterile and short-lived. Sorry, the unbranched one is the part that produces the spores. So it has reproductive function. So it produces the spores, but is also short-lived. That means that after producing the spores, it does not last for a long time. The one that lasts for a long time and that has vegetative function, it is sterile and also has vegetative function, is the unbranched, sorry, the branch shoot. So let me repeat again. I said the shoot of the shoot of Dryopteris is in this form. The shoot of Dryopteris is in this form. So half this is strobilus. So have the unbranched shoot. This is the unbranched shoot. Then this one is the branch shoot. This unbranched shoot is reproductive in function. It has a reproductive function. That means this is the one that produces the spores. But it is short-lived. It does not live, it does not live so long. Once it is done producing the spores, then it dies off. That is why it is said to be short-lived. Short-lived. Then this one is the branch shoot. This branch shoot, it has many branches. Let me show you this textbook so that it will be clearer. This branch shoot has vegetative function in the sense that it that does not mean that this unbranched shoot does not undergo photosynthesis. It still undergoes photosynthesis, but the bulk of photosynthesis occurs within the branch shoot. So it says in Equisetum, the branch shoot are sterile and vegetative in function, which I've explained. The branch shoot is sterile. Being sterile means that it does not produce spores. It's not reproductive in function, but then it has vegetative function, that is helping in photosynthesis and also in the growth of the plants. Whereas the unbranched shoots are fertile, but they are short-lived. So look at what I think I've showed this to you before. So this one is a branch one, branch one that is sterile, but vegetative in function. Then this is the unbranched one, that is reproductive in function. So we are talking about the life cycle of Dryopteris. Life cycle of Dryopteris. So of course, the plant Dryopteris produces the sporophyll with sorus, then sporangium, then all this. When the Prothallus, when the spores germinate into the Prothallus, of course, the uh, anterozoids are released from the anteridium, and through the help of water. Remember, water is still the agent of fertilization, both in Salutum, Lycopodium, Equisetum, and even in Dryopteris. With the help of water and the malic acid, because I also mentioned that the malic acid or the mucilage, the malic acid also helps to attract the anterozoids into the female uh, sexual organ. So this malic acid helps, and once it gets into the female organ, one anterozoid finally fertilizes the egg, and of course a zygote or oospore is formed, which germinates on the prothallus to become a sporophyte, and that is how the cycle continues. So let's use this. This is a plant, then sporophyll, with sorus, then what's it called again? Sporangium. So as you can see again, uh, this is a plant, the Dryopteris plant. This is a Dryopteris plant. Then this is sporophyll with sorus. Then this is sporangium. Remember I said that the the sporophyll, we can even put it this way. We can do it. Okay, whichever way. We can still write sporophyll, then sorus differently depending on how I want to write it. So you can write sporophyll with sorus. I can just write sporophyll then write sorus. Don't put strobulus, since strobulus is not found in Dryopteris. Then sorus will have sporangium, will have sperm mother cell, will have spores. Then will have prothallus. The prothallus, of course, contains the two sexual organs, and this anterozoid produces anterozoid, which is also called a sperm. Then the trigonium produces the egg, and a zygote is formed, which is also called the oospore, which develops into an embryo, and then to the Dryopteris plant. So with this, we can say bye-bye to Pteridophyta. You can see that we have three classes now, just for Pteridophyta. So in the next class, or in our next class, we'll be talking about the last group of plants. The last group of plants. Don't forget, all we'll be doing is to crisscross the whole plant kingdom. The whole plant kingdom. We have talked about the schizophyta, where you have the bacteria and blue-green algae. We talked about Talophyta, where we have the algae and fungi. We talked about the Bryophyta, where we have the liverworts, then the mosses. Now we are in the fourth group. Remember, there are 5 groups. We just finished the fourth group now, which is the Pteridophyta. We are going into the last group of plants, and there is no plant that is more advanced than this last group. And guess what? The last group is called Spermatophyta, where you have the gymnosperms and the angiosperms. So we'll look at that in our next class. Like I've been saying, if you have not subscribed, kindly subscribe. Then share this video to as many as you know will benefit from it. I still remain Dr. Ankujo Anuchenna. See you in my next class.